and welcome to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. I'm Kim, and today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about one of the most important tools in your sewing room, and that's what you cut with. We're very used to having a pair of scissors that we cut everything with, but in the sewing room, that's a real no-no. You need a pair of good scissors that you can depend on to cut efficiently and effectively every single time. And because of that, you need some tools for cutting dedicated specifically to the sewing room. I wanted to show you some of my favorites today and talk a little bit about price. This is not a one-size-fits-all. These are the items that I personally prefer to use. And of course, there are other things out there in the market. Something may work a little better for you. Now, first I'll start off by saying I'm right-handed. So these are tools that are designed or effective for right-handed cutters. First off, I have a good pair of all-purpose scissors for the cutting room. These are Fiskars brand. I've had them a while, I would say probably 3-4 years. They only get used in the sewing room, mostly for fabric and sewing materials. Occasionally there may be a little bit of paper that gets used when I'm working on a pattern that needs to be trimmed or something like that. But for most purposes, it's fabric, thread, things like that. This is a Fiskars brand. It has a very ergonomic handle and it fits in your hand very comfortably. It's molded so that the edges are very rounded so it doesn't pinch your fingers when you cut. Now this particular pair is made so it will run right along a solid flat surface to cut. It's not a bent handled scissor, so it will go completely onto the surface, but it does have enough of a bend that you can get it pretty close. This pair of scissors I would use for cutting out fabric, for rough cuts in quilting, for trimming up long strips from a jelly roll, for trimming a quilt square roughly. If I were making clothing or household goods, I would use this as well. This is not necessarily for something you need a precision cut for, but a general cut. And I think that you probably can get these maybe in the $12 range. And there are lots of different styles, lots of brands. This just happens to be Fiskars. Now, the other thing you're going to use for cutting, and in this case a little more precision in how you cut, is a rotary cutter. Now the one I happen to have is also a Fiskars. This is a 45 cutter, and there are replacement blades that you can purchase for this. This is 40, as I said, 45 millimeter. That's the size of the blade across. And these have some safety things on them that will help keep you and people that happen to come in contact with this from getting cut. To use the product, and I'm going to put this in my other hand so you can see, you're going to press here and that extends the blade out. Now at this point the blade is exposed and it's very sharp. It will, on a new blade, it will cut you. And when you do that, then you cut, the wheel is going to roll as you push it along, and that's what actually is cutting the fabric. And then when you're finished, you just press that button and the blade will retract, so now it's not exposed. And as you can see, because it's back into its storage location, I can press on there and I don't get cut. They're fairly easy to replace the blades. You just unscrew the back, take the blade off, put the new blade on. I will say that it can be tricky sometimes because these blades want to stick together, and I hope to have a short video in the future that demonstrates how to change these blades. Again, like with the all-purpose scissors, There are lots of different brands that you can get. This one, I like the way it's built with the rounded handle and the guard here so that you could run that along the fabric if you needed to. It protects your fingers from being drug across. There are different, like I said, there are different brands, there's different shapes, and there's also different sizes. There's a smaller bladed cutter that would be really good if you were cutting sharp turns in fabric. If you were doing something like Hawaiian applique quilt where you've got all the little intricate curves, that would be appropriate to use in that if you did not use a pair of scissors. And like I said, different brands, different places you can purchase these from. They're available on Amazon, in your sewing stores, in your quilt stores, pretty much just about anywhere. You can buy these at Walmart too. And I would say that a cutter like this is probably in the $14 range, 12 to 14, depending on where you purchase it. Okay, now on to my two favorite pairs of scissors. These are both made by Gingher, and I can say that of all the scissors I've used, these have been the best. I have two pairs. I'm going to talk about the smallest ones first. These are tiny little embroidery scissors. They're called 4-inch lightweight scissors. They're lightweight because the handle is plastic. It is pretty small, but your fingers fit in there pretty comfortably, as you can see. They're easy to use. They've got a really sharp point on it. If you are working with a cross stitch, maybe a needle point, if you're actually in there hand quilting and maybe you need to pull that stitch up a bit, this little point on the edge can really be your friend in that regard, and you can get really, really close to where you want to cut. On the other hand, that pointy edge will stick you if you're not careful, so you just need to be aware of that. Perhaps if you have small children around as well, you would need to watch that. And it does come with a little plastic sheath to go on this. I think that's correct. I think that both of these do. So these are really good. I think these are $10 to $14 depending on when and where you purchase them. And then this little set of little gems is a 5-inch metal knife edge scissor. It's also a Gingher, and they're very snug. I have them tightened up so that they're very snug. So when you're cutting, they really cut. This is not designed for cutting large pieces of fabric. This would be something if you are perhaps working on applique and you need to trim up your fabric, you need to do some close cutting. It would be really good for that. And anything that you want to be really careful with, you want to make a good, sharp, straight cut, these are good. These are a little pricey. These run about $40. And so you probably want to use a coupon if that's available, or look for sales and better prices online if you don't find them in your local store. So those are my 4 primary cutting tools that I use. There are instances where you might want to use something else in your sewing and your crafting, but these 4 I think will do just about anything you wanted them to do. I hope this was helpful in picking out your tools and knowing what scissors and cutting implements are good for what task. And as you move forward in your sewing journey, I wish you well. We'll see you next time.